Welcome to Noise in the Void Interviews in Art. My name is Emily and I'm here today with Brianna North. Brianna is the author of several novels, including the social media themed thriller A Familiar Betrayal and the emotional contemporary tale Where the Sun Don't Shine. Where the sun won't shine. See how that goes? When she's not working on her next novel, you can find her reading, checking new countries off her bucket list, or playing with her cat Cooper. Thank you so much for being here, Brianna.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be
So,
on
what
today.
have you brought to read for us?
So I brought the first couple paragraphs to my new novel that I'm working on. I actually just finished the draft this past Saturday, so I'm hoping it'll be out by
Okay,
July.
whenever you're ready.
Okay. The house is perfect. Well, if you look past the smattering of rotten shingles, the loose siding, and the overgrown lawn, it has the potential to be the perfect house. With a budget this low, this was the best we could do, but you know what? We love it and all its quirks. The opportunities to customize it to our liking are endless, and with a little bit of elbow grease, we'll eventually have this place looking like it's straight out of a magazine. That is, once we can actually afford the renovations. Sure, the price of a fixer upper looks great on paper until you factor in all the extras. It's going to take a lot of budgeting and patience. It could be years before we're done working on it. And the thought makes my head spin, but I don't want to think about that right now. All I want to think about is that I'm finally a homeowner, something Liam and I once imagined wouldn't be possible for us in this economy. But here I am, standing outside our home with the keys in my palm. It's a little ugly, if I'm honest, but it'll do.
Well, that's wonderful. And you can tell it's fiction because your main character is a homeowner.
Yeah, exactly. Something we can only all dream of.
So, the first thing I want to ask you is of all the ways to express yourself creatively, why writing? Why was that your draw?
I think it just naturally came to me because I always loved reading when I was a kid. Like I always had my book or my nose in a book, and I had an above average reading level when I was in elementary school, and I always felt like it just came really naturally to me because I like to create kind of the same things that I was reading. So I would almost make like little fan fictions at first, and I always found that it was a really nice escape. It was like having a little movie in my head. And so I liked being able to be the one in control of kind of what happened. And so it was just very natural to me, I
You
felt.
know, there's this thing going around on the internet right now that says that people who were prolific readers, and I was there, I would read above my grade level and I absolutely loved it, but they're the ones now having a hard time finishing a book because they can't do it as well as they used to do it as children, so we hold back. Do you feel that? Does that relate to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to just literally write whatever came to my mind. And now I feel like there's a sense of judgment there now where it's like, oh, this is stupid. Like, why would I write that down? And then you second guess yourself where you're like, is this even worth my time? And especially now, like with me having a full time job and doing this on the side, I always find I'm kind of doing that where I'm like, is this worth my time or
Well,
not?
if you can,
It's kind of a
I
struggle.
really encourage the listeners to go look at your Facebook page because you created the most beautiful meme, and I assume the picture of is you as a child, or
Yes.
and it's all of the things that you're thinking to yourself, like, I can't believe this book isn't good enough, and then I wrote a book. Like your younger self is just so excited for all these things that you accomplished. I felt that in my heart.
Mhm.
Did you feel that was a good way to, I don't know, get that self doubt out of your head and onto the page? I don't know how much it might have helped, but I know it helped as a reader.
Yeah, it definitely does a little bit. It kind of helps me put into perspective. Like sometimes you just tend to judge yourself, like you're your own biggest critic. And so I found like I saw another, it was a realtor in Sudbury that I actually got that inspiration from for that post. And she had said like something very similar where she was like beating herself up for not doing as good. And her younger self was like, we get to do something we love every day and call it work. And I was like, I really love that. Like it really resonated with me. And so I was like, I really think I could make my younger self happy by making this post because I tend to compare myself to a lot of other authors as well. Like I find like, oh, others are more successful than I am and they've been doing it for less time than I have. And so sometimes it's just you need that reality check to tell you like you're actually not doing as bad as you think you are.
And it's you setting the standard too. No one else is setting this ridiculous thing that you have to hit. It's
Mm-hmm.
yourself, which is,
Yeah,
I
absolutely. Sometimes you can just be unnecessarily
well,
hard on
exactly.
yourself.
I think maybe we were taught that at a young age. It's you have to strive to always be better. So you had an idea in your head of what better was, and then if you couldn't achieve it,
Mhm.
oh, we're going to get into some philosophical territory here if we keep going.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, so what is your process? Do you sit and write from page 1 to page 100, or how does that work?
That's what I tend to do, but I always find that I have to have an outline first. And even if it's just a general idea, sometimes I'll have like the first couple pages outlined and then just generally know how the book is going to end. And it's usually the middle part that I struggle with, the part where I have to move the actual story along. So I find sometimes I just let that come to me naturally, but I kind of give myself a general guideline first just so I don't feel completely lost. But I at least know like what the end goal is. I know like how the book is going to end and like sort of how they get there, but sometimes I just leave it to my own brain to let the characters do the talking sometimes. So sometimes that's the best way to approach
Oh,
it.
how rigid is it? Have you ever gotten to a point in your outline where you're like, you know what, this isn't working the way I thought it was? Or do you try to fit the narrative to how you had it planned out because it needs to do that to make it to that end point?
It's kind of a mix of both. Like I find it's worked well for the last couple books just having the general guideline, but I remember like I used to have every single chapter lined out for like every single thing that was going to happen. And the first time I ever went into it blind, I had the biggest mess of a manuscript with so many plot holes. It was insane. And I had to spend like at least a year like going back and like making it all make sense because it was one of those things where it was like a miscommunication trope. And I know how much a lot of people hate that, where I was like, this all could have been solved if they had just had one conversation, then this whole book wouldn't have needed to happen. So then I was like stuck and I was like, how can I make this make sense now? And then I told myself I would never do a book without an outline ever again because that was the hardest book I've ever had to write.
But it was important for enough for you to stick with it. Have you ever tossed an outline or even tossed half a manuscript?
Never quite that far, but I did. I used to write multiple novels at the same time when I was in high school, and now I know that I absolutely cannot do that anymore. I don't have the mental capacity for that. But a few times back in high school, I would have general ideas and I would start them and I would write maybe like a chapter or two and I would be like, this is stupid. And I would just toss it and never look back. And sometimes I would think to myself, like, is the story worth telling? Like, is there anything here that like somebody could take something from? And if I don't think so, then usually I'll just kind of be like, okay, well then maybe that's just for myself and not for the public consumption.
Kind of like some of the fan fiction that's out there.
Oh yeah.
It's like that was an inside thought.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to have that reality check in a way of like, would anybody actually read this? I don't know. But then the self-doubt creeps in and you never know.
I've been I'm really into following some of these book talk dramas that are going on, and one of them was,
Mhm.
I forget her name, but she was the one who she went viral with her idea of her book, and then it finally came out and it was awful. And sometimes like I really do
Oh
hate that
yeah.
self-doubt, but sometimes I wonder if that's what keeps me in check, that I know if I am putting this
Mhm.
out for someone else to read, they deserve something of quality or something better than what I would expect for me to read. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I always find before I ever put anything out, I always have to get at least a few set of eyes on it that are completely unbiased. Because, of course, my mom is going to tell me that it's the best thing she's ever written. So I always get beta readers for that. And it's just like a random person that I find on the internet. And they'll usually like tell me it's almost like a test, like what they think works and what doesn't. And I don't necessarily have to take their opinion. And it is putting a lot of trust into a complete stranger that they're not just going to pirate your book or like pass it off as their own. So I always try to do as much research as I can in that sense, but I find that actually really helps me is like to have a completely unbiased opinion tell me like, well, like maybe this isn't working so much and like maybe you could use this to improve.
So is that something that came with learning that you had to go and for an outside source? Or is that something you decided within the first book or two that this is something I need to do as far as beta readers?
Yeah, I didn't get one for my first book, but by that point I decided that I had to for my second because I figured that was going to be very important. And it's not even necessarily because like my first book was bad or anything, but I realized like maybe I should be kind of getting some of that unbiased opinions because my family, even if it's like my aunt or my grandma, like they're all going to tell me that it's the best thing that they've ever seen. And so I find the more books that I put out, the more that I tend to learn about the process. Like I finally learned about ARC readers so that you have some reviews going out before the book comes out and that like really helps a lot with marketing, but my first few books I never did that and now I really wish that I
Well,
did.
that was actually another question I was going to ask was about marketing because I've seen you at a lot of local festivals and you're usually, but I don't see, maybe it's just the algorithm not showing me your posts, but it seems that you're kind of boots on the ground more than doing it online. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say it's a mix of both because my full time day job is in marketing. And so I know how important the marketing aspect of it is, but I also know how much the algorithm can suck sometimes. And so I'm actually starting to do like a little experiment this month where I'm posting every single day of the month and seeing what it does for my reach because usually the algorithm rewards consistency. And so I was only doing like maybe 2 to 3 times a week. So I'm trying to see what happens this month if I post every day, but make it something high quality, like not just rushing into it and posting whatever just to post. So I've been finding it's been doing okay, but I find I get more sales from being in person rather than online.
What would you tell someone who is just starting out? I'm going to get into more of how we can help someone who wants to get into writing, but the first thing I want to get your opinion on is how much money they should sink into it. Because I always say if you do it right, the first round just to try it out, you shouldn't be sinking any money into it really.
Yeah, I would say it can depend on your genre too, because I know some fantasy authors, they'll usually invest in character art. So for me, as like a contemporary and thriller author, that's not something that I pay for, but that might be something to consider. Like if you have a fantasy book or a science fiction, something like that. And if you're not good with graphic design in any sense, I would definitely say to put some money aside to invest in a cover designer because as much as people you like to say that they don't judge a book by a cover, like they definitely do. And so I find like having a really eye-catching cover is very important in that sense. So I'd say that and an editor. And like for me personally, I used a beta reader, and sometimes they will catch some typos, which really works. But if it's something that you feel like you need help with, I would definitely invest in an editor as well.
But you should, if you were to even take those steps, if someone says we'll put your book out there, pay us $10,000, you're getting scammed. I don't mean to be rude.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think it should cost that much. It might be like a couple thousand. I've heard people say they've spent upwards of like 4 to 5 thousand, whereas for me, I definitely did not get anywhere near that. But it's because I'm in marketing, so a lot of the resources I already knew about. But I would say like right now my biggest investment is in the markets, so I have to buy all the copies beforehand and like pay for all the vendor shows up front, and so that's been my biggest investment right now.
Has it been worth it?
Yeah, the more that I do, the more it becomes worth it. So I find if I was only doing one or two, I wasn't turning as much as a profit as I was expecting. So my first 2 years, full transparency, my first 2 years of being a published author, I didn't profit whatsoever. So it's only been these last few years.
You know, when I started this, the thing I wanted was complete honesty for people starting out, but it still hurts to hear it.
Yeah. Once I ran my numbers with everything that I had paid for versus how much I made, I think it was in the negatives. Like it wasn't too bad in the negatives, but it was still like negative like $300. for every year. And so it hurt a little bit to see that and to feel like all the purchases weren't actually like helping me in a sense. Like they weren't like lining my pockets or anything, but I was doing it because I loved it so much that I was like, eventually I'm trusting myself that this will work out if I just keep trying.
That's a, I love that. That made me that actually warmed my heart. So,
Aw.
so I've actually been asked this, so I have to assume you have been as well. That how do you start? And I would like to give these people more than what I've been telling them, which is grab a pen and start writing.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my answers was just grab the pen, start writing, and you can worry about going back and editing later. So sometimes you just have to write out everything that comes to your mind, and it can be a mess, but it's like a beautiful mess, I find, because my first two books were 125,000 words each, and by the time I published them, I cut them down to
Oh
75,
wow.
which was a crazy amount. But once I went back and realized how much filler chapters I had that weren't actually driving the story forward, like they were just kind of there to be there, like they didn't have a reason for being there, it was easy to start cutting them after that and realizing how wordy I can be sometimes, where I was like, this is redundant. I can just take this out.
Well,
But
reality check number two: your first draft is always gonna suck. Yeah.
oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, that's the point. The point is to get word to page. And I did say that I
Mhm.
wanted something other than just start writing, but I think some people overcomplicated it in their minds, and it is just as easy as start writing, and everything else will kind of come afterwards. But first, you have to get the story down on paper.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say the other thing too is I know like outside influences can be a lot. So it's, I would say, like, don't care about other people's opinions. And I know it's a lot easier said than done, but I remember seeing a quote somewhere, I think it was on Facebook, like when I first started out, that made it really put into perspective. It was like, oh, what was it? It was like, uh, don't be afraid to, oh my God, what was, but it was basically like, do whatever you want because people are going to talk about you no matter what you do. So you might as well just do whatever you want. And so I was like, wow, like I'm always scared that people are going to be like talking crap about me. But then I had to realize, like, who cares? Like, it's something that I want to do. And if they're going to talk about me anyway, like, I don't want to grow old and like look back on my life and think, like, I never did that thing because I was scared of what other people thought of me.
And it's, I don't know if that's an age thing or a wisdom thing or, just something that you have to work through on your own. But I think that is absolutely great advice. Just do it because no one's going to do it for you. And that's actually been
Mhm.
my motto this year is I would last year it was I'd rather do something rather than nothing. And this year is no one's doing it for me. And so I've been holding back on things that I haven't wanted to do or I've wanted to do because of fear. And if I'm scared at this age, oh my god, I gotta I gotta get over it. Again, tough. This is gonna be the tough love video. So, how do you know when you're finished? That someone asked me that recently, and I never really, I didn't ever have a conscious thought that okay, this is where I'm going to stop. This is good enough for me. Sometimes it does come out of I'm sick of it. But what is your answer to that?
Mhm. I would say sometimes I hate to say that it just comes naturally, but it kind of does. When I'm coming to the end of a chapter, at least, I actually was asked this not too long ago. Like, how do you know when the chapter is over? And I was like, sometimes it just is. Like, sometimes when I feel like there's nothing more that I can add and that I feel like I need a page break, then I'm like, okay, maybe I can just cut this off here for now and maybe come back to it. And sometimes I come back to it and I'm like, you know what? It's done actually. And then I can move on to the next chapter. And then, like, as for the book as a whole, it's usually just by my outline. But sometimes I find myself adding things as I go. Where if, say, my outline only has 30 chapters, sometimes I'm like, oh, I got this new idea. I can add chapter 31. And so sometimes it's like it's a weird process where some things come naturally, and then sometimes I end up just deleting like a good portion of it because I'm like, wait, no, this isn't working. I hate this so much. This needs to go. It's like kind of tough love on myself a little bit too, where I'm telling myself like, no, 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 this isn't
So
working.
let's say you've done your first draft and maybe another draft, and you've had your beta reader look at it. Do you have in your head, like, I'm going to do 3 or 4 drafts? Or do you, it's more organic than that? And it is more like the chapter ending. It's, you know what, this was where it was supposed to end, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's usually only like 2 drafts at most. It was a lot more for my earlier works because there was a lot of mess going on and there was a lot that I had to fix. But I find the more that I've been writing, like the easier it seems, even though it's far from easy. It was like because I was in high school, like I was still learning about how to write a book at the same time. And I was reading a lot. I was trying to like take in all the information that I could. And now that I've done it so much, I find by the second or even sometimes third draft, I find that's when it seems to flow a little better to me. And like then I can finish it and think to myself, like, that was actually not terrible. And once I have that it's not terrible feeling, I'm like, okay,
Well,
it's
what
done.
would you say is more important, that someone, like, is there any value in taking creative writing classes or getting an MFA, or is the actual act of writing more important than anything else?
I feel like a mix of both a little bit. Like, I don't think you necessarily need to have an MFA, but I find having at least one creative writing class where you can kind of learn the different ways that you can get ideas on paper. So I took public relations in college, and my first year there was one creative writing class that I had to take, and she gave so many different ideas for how to spark ideas, if that makes any sense. Like she would have us write these little like bubbles. She would give us a word and then think of everything you can associated with that word and then just keep growing it and growing it and growing it and then see if you can make a story out of it. So I remember being like, wow, like I never thought about that before. Like I just put pen to paper and never thought about like creative brainstorming like that. So I think that can help sometimes, but for the most part, like I don't feel like you need a full college education to get that done. But the occasional workshop where you're working like with an experienced author and they can kind of give you their advice, I find that to be really helpful.
And if anyone out there is interested, I've taken to scrolling through Facebook events, and some of them that are just online events that are free. And there's a surprising amount of workshops out there that are free, just to, get the,
Mhm.
I was going to say creative juices flowing, but I really hate that saying. So I was really afraid to ask this question because I hate it when people ask it of me, but who's your audience? Who do you hope is your audience, I
I
guess?
would, well, I think since 4 of my books are young adult, I would say I have a big teenage audience. And then as for my adult works that I'm starting to kind of dip my toes into, I would say basically anyone who likes something that makes you cry or something that terrifies you and is a fast-paced mystery. I have kind of a mix of both of that because I write both contemporary and thrillers. So I would say basically anyone from ages 13 and up who's into any of those
Well,
things.
I wonder if that solid line between YA and adult books is even really there anymore, or if the reason that they're so excited to ban books right now is because of how blurred that line is.
Yeah, like I find myself still reading YA occasionally, and I'm going to be 27 this year, but I still find it's such a great escape for me to be able to go back to high school and just pretend like I'm a high schooler again and I get to just escape into that world and not have to think about my own life for a little
And
bit.
I love the perspective of teenagers sometimes because, and I've noticed this in your books as well, and I tried to do it, but and I hope I do it, that they do have a very strong and unique voice that doesn't get tapped that often because they tend to get dismissed. Even though the emotions are there, the intelligence is there, they're human beings, and I think That's maybe something that
Hmm.
people dealing with teenagers forget, and some writers forget too. That's why they try to stay away from teenagers.
And a lot of people feel that teenagers are immature. And so sometimes I've seen bad reviews of YA books that I've read where they say, like, this character was so annoying because they weren't perfect, essentially. And it's like, you have to remember, like, they are still learning. And that was sometimes the author's intention, is to show that, like, they don't know everything. But by the end of the book, they've grown a little bit. And so I feel like sometimes people forget that. And I think maybe that can be why they get a little frustrated when they read YAs, because they're like, wow, like, this person's so immature. Like, duh, they should have this figured out. But if I think back to when I was 16 and 17, like, no, I did not have that figured out.
And I wonder sometimes if any of us do. But,
Yeah, it's still a work in progress.
so, what are your views on self-published versus traditionally published? Do you think that there's more of room now for self-published people, or I've seen, again, like I said, I love book talk drama, and I've seen some people starting to use AI, and now people are getting leery of self-published. But what are your views?
Yeah, I can understand where they're coming from in the sense of AI. At the same time, I think I love how flexible self publishing can be, that it's a really good start for you if you eventually want to get into traditional publishing. It kind of shows, I think, that you have that drive, is that maybe your first few books are self-published, but once you've gotten better at writing, then you can try your hand at traditional publishing. But I love the flexibility that it has, because you have a lot of control over what you write. So I've heard, because I'm not traditionally published, like, I'm not 100% on this, but what I've heard is that they're trying to create something that will sell. Whereas usually, if you're a self published author, like, you're creating to create. So sometimes they try to twist your manuscript to make it a little more marketable, or like change your title and things like that. But I love being able to just choose whatever I want. And I know sometimes that is helpful. Like, if, say, they tell you you need to change direction, sometimes you do need that. But I find I just love having that flexibility right now to be able to choose when I publish also. Like, I get to create my own timeline. I don't have to be stuck with a deadline and be stressed out about that, especially with a full-time job. I don't have to stress about coming home and making sure that I get X amount of words in before the end of the day because I won't reach my deadline in time. I just love being able to do it on my own terms.
I 100% agree with that. And it sometimes it feels like self-published is it is more fun in a way, because yeah, no one's telling you no. The only person who's telling you no is you.
Yeah, exactly.
um so you had mentioned a writing trope earlier. What do you think is the worst writing trope?
Oh my god. I for sure think the miscommunication trope is definitely one of them. And I also, just because I'm not a romance reader, this is no hate to anyone who enjoys romance, but I hate the fake dating trope. Because I know it's not realistic, like, not too many people do that in real life, but I find it's so popular. So I don't find it brings anything fresh. Like, I just feel like, and this is from an outside perspective, me not ever trying any of these books, so take my words with a grain of salt. But I find they sound the same to me. But at the same time, you could argue that about thrillers too.
Well, and I'm
But
sure a romance writer would have a thriller trope that they hate, but no, I get that one, and I could picture it in my head. I couldn't remember the movie, but it was, okay, let's pretend to date so they'll my ex will be jealous, and then the pretend date turned into a real date, and now they love each other.
yeah, it's an escape, I guess, is kind of the thing. It's personally not for me. Is I personally, I'm just, if I'm seeing it out there, I'm like, like, would this really happen? I don't know. It's that, like, that critic part of me that I don't like.
Yeah, I that's something I've gotten over in the last little bit, is hating on other people. And I it was romance. That was the one that I did
Mhm.
still reserve judgment. I stopped with the pulp paperbacks and things like that, which aren't so much a thing anymore, but I just want people to read now. And I apologize to anyone who maybe I said something bad to on your way to just reading. But yes, I still hate the
Mm-hmm.
fake date. I agree with that 100%. So, where can we? Okay, thank God I'm editing this. So I'm actually surprised this went by perfectly. So the last question I want to ask you is, or two more questions. So before, do you have any book recommendations aside from your own books?
Yeah, right now, if you're a thriller reader, I can't recommend Frida McFadden's books enough. She Her book just got turned into a movie, The Housemaid, and I think that one's my personal favorite of hers. But I find they're so simple and so easy to binge because like they're not super complex. So you can basically chew through one of those in one sitting or two sittings. I find they go by so quickly and they're just so entertaining even when they go completely off the rails, like unrealistic. It's just you start having so much fun with it. So I love her books for that. I've read probably every book she's had except for maybe 3 or
Oh,
4.
that's awesome. And last but not least, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so I'm on all social medias, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok as Brianna North author. And you can probably see me around Sudbury or North Bay at any craft shows. I usually post on my Facebook where I'm going. So I usually
Are
pop
your
up
books available on Amazon?
at least. Yeah, so all my books are available on Amazon, and then locally they are at Bayused Books and Books and Beans in downtown Sudbury, and they're also at the Main Street Market in St. Charles if you are in the area.
Wonderful. Again, Brianna, thank you so much for being here. If you want to see the video of this, you can go on my YouTube channel, Garbage Words with Garbage Lady. You can listen to this on the radio or on the internet at CKLU 96.7 Sudbury. Thank you so much and have a great day.